Good morning, everybody. We've got a birthday spectacular planned for Aaron Rodgers, the big 4-0, big milestone birthday. We'll talk about that. Also, the Jets injury report, a little concerning. We will discuss that as well and a few other topics here the day before the Jets-Falcons contest. Let's roll on a Saturday.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Aaron Rodgers is joining the show. What's up, Adam? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Good morning, everybody. Paul Weston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green, New York Jets digital reporter for HeavyGashdarn.com. We're streaming live for Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show. It's also available wherever you find your podcast in the audio-only version. Heavy on Jets for streaming, YouTube, and Twitter right now. But before we get started, a couple of shameless plugs. We interviewed two names this week that you won't believe. Two big names. Myles Garrett. No, not the defensive lineman for the Cleveland Browns, a Falcons reporter with the same name spelled slightly differently, but when I say it, Myles Garrett, it just sounds kind of cool. So we interviewed him this week, so feel free to check that one out. And number two, this one has absolutely nothing to do with the New York Jets. But I got to be honest, it was a bucket list item. Emmitt Smith, the NFL's all-time leading rusher, and I get it, I'm a Jets guy. You see all the Jet stuff. Boy Green, obviously. Jet. But my passion for football came from my father, who is a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. And, he used to run through our house. And I tell that story to Emmitt Smith during our interview. Like, my dad would run through the house, waving his Cowboys flag before every game. He just had all this energy and passion going, Emmitt, and running through the house and going all crazy. So it's just so cool to be able to get a chance to interview Emmitt Smith, his icon, his idol, his legend, and all those things. So if you guys have, it's only a 13-minute interview or so. If you have the time, I'd highly recommend checking that out as well. NFL historical interviews, some Cowboy stuff, but really cool. So shout out there as well. Without further ado, after a bit of a delay there with some shameless promotions, let's bring in our guy. He is now a multi-time offender here on Boy Green Daily. That's got to be good news for something, I think. Talking Jets with Tigo now joins us here on a Saturday morning. Good morning, Tigo.
Good morning, Paul.
Wow. So how does it feel to, have your membership card punched on multiple occasions now? Click, 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 click. Here you are. How does that feel?
Must mean I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was almost certain after once you'd be like, man, this Tigo guy talks too much. I don't know how I can do this. And I never get it. And then I got the call and I was like, let's go.
There you go. And here we are. And of course, without further ado, another thing. Happy birthday, Aaron Rodgers, who is 40 years of age here on December 2nd today. And I want to start with a couple Aaron Rodgers things before we get here into Jets-Falcons. By the way, he was ruled out for the Falcons game, for those curious on that injury report I talked about. Because it's funny, because so he has his window activated this week, which was, again, big news. Like, whoa, he returned to practice earlier even than some reporters thought. Jake Glazer reported that he may return to practice today on his birthday, which would be impossible technically, I guess you could do it, but that'd be kind of a waste to activate him a day before a game. That'd be wasteful for the whole week of practice. But anywho, that's neither here nor there. But the fact of the matter is that he returned like in the month of November is a little bit wild. But there was some Falcons report because I watch both media. I'm kind of curious to see what the other team is saying about the Jets and stuff. And they say, hey, Aaron Rodgers has been activated this week. There's a chance he could go. These Falcons reporters are telling these players. And it's funny, and then one player was like, what? Aaron Rodgers this week? He like tore his Achilles in September, and it was just some funny reaction, like what in tarnation? And then like some were like, he ain't playing, but it's a cool story, but he ain't playing this week. Maybe another week, not this week. But it's just kind of wild. So I ask you this, Tigo. We'll do this in a few layers. First off, do you believe he plays this season? With a happy birthday, Aaron Rodgers today, do you believe he plays at some point here in 2023, whether it's one more snap or a game or what have you, in any form or fashion?
Probably. I don't think you could ever convince a staff, like a coaching staff or a player group, to like punt on the season, right? And I think if you're Joe Douglas, you want him to play this year at some point in time, based purely on you need to evaluate what this team is with Aaron Rodgers. Is this offensive line really this bad, or are our quarterbacks this bad? Is this wide receiver room really this bad, or are our quarterbacks just bad? Is Nathaniel Hackett really this bad, or are our quarterbacks just this bad? You can answer a lot of questions, even if it's just a game or two of Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers goes out there and throws for 350 yards behind this O-line with that wide receiver group and with Nathaniel Hackett and wins a game handedly, you feel a little bit better going into this offseason. So if he's ready and willing to go behind this O-line, I would let him go, because I think the evaluation aspect of this football team is so important.
That's fascinating insight, because I think obviously the offense has been terrible this year. Breaking news. Yeah. Sorry. Spoiler alert for anyone who hadn't watched the earlier games, I guess. But, so they've been bad, and Hackett's been bad. And to your point, there's been all these layers of bad, historically inept for a lot of it. But if Rodgers came back for, I don't know, let's call it a game, I guess. That's probably a good enough sample sizes. But him coming in for a play and throwing like an 80-yard touchdown, then leaving, drop the mic. So if he comes in for a game, and to your point, whether it's statistically or the eye test or something, he pops. I think you're right that it just sends this message of reassurance, because we don't know. Like, we know what we think we know from the offseason and hype and all this stuff. But 4 plays in, we don't know the regular season product. So if he came in and delivered, there is a vote of confidence in Nathaniel Hackett by virtue, like, okay, he had that comment on the Pat McAfee show a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I won 2 MVPs in this offense. I think it's okay. Like, with all due respect, we don't normally swear on the show, but like, fuck you, pal. Like, that offense not too shabby. Look, I came right in and booyah, there you are. So I think there is an immediate that. And then also, to your point, the evaluation of some of the pieces, like the offensive line that's been marred and looks terrible. Oh, wait, Aaron Rodgers and his savviness, will kind of generalize that, can make a bad offensive line look a little better, because he can get rid of the ball quickly. He can make adjustments. He can see who the hell is the free blitzer or what's coming, and do things that some of these other cats can't. And then in general, the offense in theory was designed for his ability to free willy, to go commando at any time and just start saying, Bluebird 22 Red Cobra. You know what? F this. Peyton Manning pre-snap, blee, blah, blue, blah, blue. All right, let's move this. Boop, 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 and just start drawing stuff in the dirt. And then, yeah, I think you're right that just the taste of that, even for a game, will increase, I think, our own hype level heading into the offseason. Like, oh, wow, this is what it was supposed to look like. This is what it is. Now we use this year as a weird mulligan, and we saw all the deficiencies, the cracks in the statue. Now let's add this, Devontae Adams, the offensive line help, or whatever. And then in 2024, we're like, okay, now we have Rodgers plus all this. Now Super Bowl time, or whatever is crazy. That's a fascinating comment. I haven't heard that a lot about the benefits to that point of what a mini Rodgers return can. Everyone says, boy, you don't want him to be re-injured. Of course. But that benefit, and to Rodgers' own, right? Like, he wants to be the fastest guy to ever come back from an Achilles, and to be able to do that as well, a little check in the back. I think his own confidence, which I think is normally pretty high, I would be if I was Aaron Rodgers. So I think that would take it to another level too, heading into the offseason. Another like, okay, yeah, baby, they're Jet fans. There's a little taste, baby. Watch this. And like, I think that could send us a little crazy. That could send us a little crazy.
Especially because like the last game of the season is against New England. He goes out there and drops 350 plus on New England. in the it's one of those things where it's just like, yeah, it might affect the draft position and make it a little bit worse and blah, 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 blah. But if he can make some of these receivers who aren't named Garrett Wilson, who have looked absolutely abysmal all year, and make them look passable, like how much more confident are you feeling going into next year? That you're just like, well, it's not just Garrett Wilson. Maybe the problem really is that Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, and Trevor Siemian all are garbage.
Which could be possible.
Very, while it's very likely.
Yeah. Very interesting. So, okay. I let me throw this question. I saw this. I saw this in the chat. Actually, before I get to this one, I want to ask you one I just have in my own hand. Okay. If no Aaron Rodgers comes back, and it's like Tim Boyle, I don't know, in the Week 18 finale against the New England Patriots, and they trot out whoever the slap beep they throw out there. Bailey Zappi apparently is the guy this week, whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Jets have lost whatever it is, 15 in a row now. Disgusting. So, if it's Tim Boyle and whatever combination of trash that's left for the Jets comes out, if they end the streak, does that still have any juice whatsoever, or is that because obviously if they do that, obviously, the streak's over, but that would obviously help the New England Patriots from a draft perspective? Or would it only truly you savor the juice if Aaron Rodgers comes back? Because to your point, all of a sudden to me, in theory, so I'm going to sway your answer potentially with my garbage, my poison here, but Aaron Rodgers coming back and smacking around the Patriots, even if obviously it doesn't matter, right? The Jets finished 7-10 or whatever they would be. That to me would make it worth it. F you Patriots. See, this is what you were in store for the whole time with Rodgers. The streak's over. I would lose my mind. What an excellent way in my head to end it. But if Aaron Rodgers isn't there, I'm not sure if it has the same sizzle. I'm going to be honest. What say you?
I totally agree. I think no matter what happens, the New England Patriots are probably going to end up taking a quarterback this offseason.
Yeah.
In the draft. They're at number 3 right now, and you'd have to assume that they're probably looking and eyeing Arizona's number 2 pick. And I don't think the top of the draft is going to change all that much. I think it's going to stay Carolina, Arizona, New England, Chicago. And with Chicago owning Carolina's pick, you're going to have that. So I totally agree with you. If Tim is the guy who trots out there and beats the Patriots, I'm going to be like, really? Especially what happens if Arizona goes on a little bit of a run here towards the back half?
Here's the Patriots schedule. You tell me if you see wins here, okay? Actually, I'll throw each name and you just tell me a win or loss, okay? Obviously, right now they're 2-9, 2 wins right now. So Chargers, home game against the Chargers.
Loss.
Okay. At Pittsburgh.
Loss.
Home for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Super loss.
Thank God they moved that out of primetime, by the way. That was scheduled to be a Monday Night Football game. Thankfully, they took that out. They do have a 3-game run here of primetime games. They did. That was the Steelers, Chiefs, and Broncos. Those were all standalone games before the NFL stepped in and did it right. But that's another loss. Okay, at Denver.
Loss.
At Buffalo.
Loss.
And then the New York Jets finishes the season for what would be, in theory, on that game we just played, a 2-win team. Just a fascinating nugget as context heading into this of maybe no change at the top, but for that situation.
See, now I start thinking about that and I go, maybe it kind of doesn't matter because if you look at Arizona, right? If that's the point, because if you look at Arizona, they've got a win on their schedule. They got Chicago on their schedule. And Arizona's kind of turned it around a little bit, statistically.
With Kyler, right?
Yeah, once Kyler got back. So it's Pittsburgh, that's a loss. San Francisco, that's a loss. But then they play Chicago in week 16, and you're just I think Arizona's better than Chicago. Mm-hmm. That's a W. So if now you're looking at it, it's an interesting conversation to have. I think in the end, you should want to beat New England no matter what it does to their draft situation. Yeah. Because you have to remember that it doesn't matter who's under center for them. They still have to play our defense, and that's going to be a tough challenge for the best quarterbacks. Look what we did to Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts this year, let alone Caleb Williams or Drake May.
Yeah, fair enough. Here's a question we got earlier. I just want to highlight this on our Facebook page. So thank you, everybody who sends in questions. We always see them all. So even if we can't get to them on a shorter show. But Robert Bianchi here on Facebook. When we move Aaron to the active roster, what quarterback gets cut? For those who do not know, all three of the Jets' current quarterbacks are on the 53-man roster. Trevor Siemian was brought up. So you have Tim Boyle, you have Trevor Siemian, and Zach Wilson. If Aaron Rodgers was to be activated, that would be ahead of the Washington Commanders game. Again, they have a 21-day practice window where he does not count against the roster right now. But at the end of that 21-day run, they have to decide activate him, which means bring him to the roster. You got to cut somebody to make a spot. Or you say, not going to happen, and then you deactivate him, and then he is out for the season. Now, if you deactivate him, he can no longer practice with the team. So they may, even if Aaron Rodgers never plays this year, it may behoove them to activate him so he could get all these extra reps with his teammates in terms of practice. So I ask you, here, Tigo, I assume he's going to be activated. Feel free to answer that. And if he is, who is the quarterback? That's actually an interesting question. Who gets dumped?
Trevor Siemian is the easy answer.
That's where I'm leaning. Yeah.
Whether or not, like, the reality is you can't, like, you're not going to move on from Zach yet. You're going to wait until the offseason to try to do that, see if you can get a trade in place or whatever it is with something like that. Trevor Siemian is here to fill out a roster spot, and I think people really need to comprehend that aspect of it. Like, that's it. Trevor Siemian is here to fill out a roster spot, and Tim Boyle is on the roster because of how intelligent he is as a quarterback. Like, the whole point of Tim Boyle this whole year was, let's not. He's another quarterback's coach in the room, and that's the whole point. That was the whole point of Tim Boyle. That's why he's in the NFL. So I think if you're going to move on from anybody, it's Trevor, and I think it's not even that difficult of a decision if you're the staff.
Yeah, listening to Rich Cimini this week on his Flight Deck podcast, highly recommend. There's always some good insider nuggets there. Is that during that conversation, he basically said, like, man, the Jets don't think very highly of Trevor Siemian, and by him not playing, that's kind of obvious. And then just in general, like they are doing anything in their power to basically not put him on the field, which must mean they must see something behind the scenes that is not revving the engine, I would assume, which should be quite a detriment considering the Tim Boyle experience so far. There's just no question about that. Before we get out of here, I've seen the Jets and Falcons final injury report. So we mentioned Rodgers out. I'm sorry to share that, folks. So the return won't be this week. But I'll just throw it up here on the screen. If you guys haven't, we'll walk through it for our audio-only listeners. Tigo, who the hell is playing running back this week? Israel Abanikanda, questionable. Dalvin Cook, questionable. Breece Hall, questionable. Breece Hall, all three. Well, Izzy was an illness, so that's why he was on. But the other two popped up this week, which are never good signs when they pop up in the middle of the week. But that is what happened with Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook. I'm going to be honest, I would be questionable as well, still recovering from the ACL surgery in February. So I probably the official designation questionable on my old ass of possibly hopping in. In God's green earth, first off, who is playing running back? Because those are the only three running backs they have on the roster. And secondly, if this is like some dire situation, we got some weird ass crap happening, are they just turning the cap backward and let him boil? Question mark.
So it's the injury report's interesting because Dalvin Cook only showed up on the injury report on Friday. Yeah. So you have to be interested to understand what the shoulder, because it's a shoulder for Dalvin Cook. Yeah. You have to at least be interested in, like, what's going to happen? What's the reality there? How does you're not sure what's going on there. Same thing with Israel Abanikanda. He was on the injury report all week, but it was with an illness.
Correct.
If you were on the injury report Wednesday with an illness, you'd have to assume you'd be able to turn it around, especially because he was limited at practice on Friday. And Breece Hall, I'm not worried about at all because he was a full practice on Friday.
Yeah.
So like at that point, you're just like, if you fully practice on Friday, should be fully ready to go for the game. So I'm going to be okay there. And I feel like confident with that. So it is interesting when you look at all of those things, but I also am a little bit interested in like, we do have a pretty like, what is or who is Xavier Valade, because I like the idea of an Xavier Valade. He's a little bit of a bigger back in terms of what we have on the team, not named Breece Hall. So like we know how running backs can come in and kind of impact a team relatively quickly nowadays, especially like undrafted guys and all that stuff. So I'm not all that worried about it, but that's mainly because Breece Hall was a full practice. And if you're telling me, oh no, Izzy is out and Dalvin is out and we have to elevate Xavier Valade and now we're just going to give a massive workload to Breece Hall, isn't that kind of what we all wanted?
That's a good point. That's a fair point. Good news here on the report. Mekhi Becton, not on the report. That is the full picture of the report, which means he's expected back, as the Jet staff has said. And Dwayne Brown, also not on the injury report. He was dressed last week as a backup for the first time in his career, being active and not playing. So he was a backup, but they made that as a precautionary move. So offense and Wes Schweitzer, obviously you see on here, he was activated off of IR. So the Jets could get those three guys back, which would be a boost. I ask you this, Tigo, as we're wrapping up here. Is it Dwayne Brown left, Mekhi right? Is that what we need to brace ourselves for, or would the Jets do something else?
I would do something else. I would
too.
put Dwayne Brown on the right. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they do that. And so if that's the case, then you're definitely looking Dwayne Brown left, Mekhi Becton right. And you have to fix this O-line to even get a chance. Because if you can, like you said, Wes Schweitzer, full practice on Friday, Mekhi Becton, full practice Thursday and Friday. So now we can get a much better, much fuller offensive line. Also, not on the injury report, Billy Turner, full practice on Friday. Now, I'm not saying we want Billy Turner on the field, but still, you're looking at a lot of these offensive linemen that are like, Billy Turner's better than Newman at right guard. Wes Schweitzer is better than Newman at right guard. So it's one of those things where you can really upgrade what has been a really, really bad unit for the New York Jets in the offensive line with literally any combination of Dwayne Brown, Wes Schweitzer, Mekhi Becton, and Billy Turner at literally any of the three positions that we need them to go with left tackle, right tackle, and right guard. So I think whatever it is that you do, it's going to be better than what we had before.
Fair enough. Although, like I said, I feel for Mekhi, man. He's a trooper. I know he had the social media comments, and a lot has been made of that, of the left tackle one, blah blah blah. But then he just has a realization like, I'm in a contract here. F this. I got to do whatever to get on the field, because like if I'm a backup, it doesn't help me or the Jets. I'm going to go to free agency, and no one's going to want me, and they're going to have to like have a team deal, like a blah blah blah. Terrible. So he's just like, F this. Fine, I'll be the best right tackle, and he just seizes the job out of nowhere. I didn't see that coming in the preseason. That was great news, great story. Obviously, Dwayne in week 3 is immediately pulled out. Mekhi gets his dream of playing left tackle, and he's just been solid all year. I don't know if he's going to be voted an all-pro, but he's been solid all year, which is really what we've always wanted to see. Outside of the sprain last week that he was held out, man, I think he's shown everything in his power. Like, Dwayne Brown's probably going to retire in the offseason, so with all due respect, what's the point? Like, I think he's one of the best 5, so he should be on the field. But I think Mekhi, you need to, if you believe that you have any chance of bringing Mekhi back, you need to see what the world looks like of him continuing to be left tackle. Because is he going to be it? Is AVT going to be it? Is some new draft pick going to be it? I don't know. But I think that's part of it that you kind of want to figure out to see if it's possible. So that's a part of the equation I'm kind of curious with what will happen. But again, my inevitability believes Dwayne, if he returns, will be left tackle, and we'll see what happens there. But what about the game? Jets-Falcons, Tigo. What do you believe is going to transpire? Crystal ball it for us. Give us your prediction.
I think it's going to be a really ugly game. I think that you're going to see that all year for the New York Jets. It's just gonna be an ugly, ugly game.
Gross.
The Falcons have been really, really average all year, and like I don't mean that like in a bad way. I mean that in like a good way. They have been. I think they're ranked like 12th or 13th in offense. I think they're ranked like 12 or 13th in defense, and they've just been solid. And the thing holding them back is the quarterback position. So you have to hope and assume that our defense can continue to take advantage of the fact that they are also in a quarterback turmoil. But this Falcons team is built well. You know, they went out there and they addressed the defensive line and the linebacker room and the safety room and the offensive line that they have and the wide receiver room. And you have all of this stuff. So I don't know what to expect when it comes to that. You think that maybe with an extra week, Tim Boyle and all this stuff, maybe he can get better with the offensive line, getting a bunch of pieces there. Maybe he can get better. So in the end, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know if the good guys are going to come out on top, and that sucks to say.
Okay, fair enough. I respect the honesty, and we'll see. That's what I'm hoping for. Like another week, knowing you're the guy, because again, remember, it was a truncated week. Boy was not named the starter till Monday. They played on Friday. So in those short weeks, you don't have full practices normally. There's a walkthrough situation. So for a guy making his first start, he even had less ops and reps than he normally would have. So hopefully, knowing this entire weekend, it was announced over the weekend, and then heading into this next game, hopefully it's better. And we'll see what we see, I suppose. Because again, Aaron Rodgers said he would consider return if they stay alive for the playoffs. They currently have less than a 1% chance to make it. If they won out, according to the New York Times playoff simulator, they'd have an over 80% chance of making it, which not bad. So they don't control their own destiny from that standpoint. But with the loss and then winning out after that, they'd have like a potentially 5 to 10% chance, depending on who the loss was to. So it's very difficult. They need to win out, basically, to have a real shot, which means you can't lose, or the Rodgers thing continues to, that candle light continues to fade potentially. But like I said, we'll see. Tigo, thanks for joining us a second time. And I, my crystal ball, I see a third time in our future. Time in our future. Hey now. Whoa. Yeah.
Is it one of those like the smoothie cars? If you get 5, the 6th one's free?
That's right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Scratch and sniff.
Nice.
That's exactly it, pal. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Of course, we'll have Woody on for a Sunday game day. And also, it looks like we have Jets-Texans next week. It looks like the great DJ Bieneme will be returning to the Jets airwaves for us to do a Jets-Texan preview. I've just been thinking about that all year. Good buddy of mine. I've been texting, chatting him up. It looks like he may be back next week. TBD, we'll let you guys know for that. So there's a little tease for next week. Tigo, enjoy your weekend, pal.
You too.
And all the college football. It's a great weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Someone mentioned
Last
that
night
earlier.
was so insane.
Oh, yeah. That was nice. Washington, boop, ticket punched. Love to see it. And, man, to get that rematch was great. I saw people talk about Bo Nix, Michael Penix. Oh, phenomenal. So I can't wait for the college football today, guys. Enjoy it, and we'll talk a little bit about it tomorrow morning. Take care, everybody.